There we are, Chair. We're ready for reporting.
Right, welcome everybody to this HR and Equalities meeting, and we'll start item number 1, apologies for absence.
Councillor Ellis, please.
Right. Right, then we move on to item number 2, and Sarah to take the roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ali. Councillor Ali? I can see you, Councillor Ali. Can you respond verbally, please?
Present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Colbrand?
Yes, present.
Thank you. Councillor Drake?
Present.
Thank you. We've had apologies from Councillor Elbury. Councillor Evans?
Yeah, present.
Thank you. Councillor Hodgins? I can't see or hear Councillor Hodgins at the moment. Councillor Holmes?
In attendance.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Hussey?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvie?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Lister? I can't see or hear Councillor Lister at the moment. Councillor Molson?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Norton?
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts?
Present.
Thank you. And Councillor Shaw?
Yes, there.
I can see you, Councillor Shaw, but I can't hear you. I'll take that as your present. And Councillor Thomas?
Present.
Thank you. That's the roll call complete, Chair.
Right, item number 3, does any member have any declaration they wish to declare? I can't see anybody raising their hands. Nothing? Right. Okay, I'll move on to item number 4. We've already gone through this. This was Chairperson's announcements. Sarah's gone through what's going to happen under item number 7. So, and as I said, I'll be taking the vote on whatever we decide then. So we move on to item number 5, to receive the minutes of the HR and Equalities meeting held on Monday, the 1st of November, 2021. Does any member need to raise anything in these minutes? No?
I'll move, Madam Chair.
Right, and seconder?
I second it, yeah.
That's fine, thank you very much. Right, item number 6 is the annual pay policy statement 22-23, and I believe Alison's going to take us through this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. So just to take you through the annual pay policy statement report, by way of background context, as you'll know, we are required to publish a pay policy statement each year. This is a forward-looking statement, so this statement covers the period 22 to 23. The Fire Authority has determined that the HR and Equality Committee shall review the pay policy statement prior to it being presented to full Fire Authority for sign-off. And we are required to publish the statement by the end of March each year. What I have done to hopefully make it a little bit easier for us this time is highlighted sections that have been, that I am suggesting that we consider and tweak. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look at those, but I will talk through them in a bit more detail now. So just to take you through the Appendix 1, so starting on top page 15, section 4.1, the Principal Officer's Pay Construct. In reviewing this document, some of my research was around the terms and conditions aspects of pay policies, if you like. What I've done there is capture the NJC terms and conditions for Gold Book, so that's Principal Officer Pay, just to provide a bit more clarity around the approach on Principal Officer Pay. So that text has been lifted from the Gold Book terms and conditions. That's also replicated in 4.3, so just clarity around the approach. which is a twin track approach for principal officer pay, which is around the NJC approach, and plus a local determination by the Fire and Rescue Authority. So that's the first set of amendments. I'll pause there just to take any comments or questions on the suggested amendments there.
Does any member want to raise any questions? I can't see anybody.
No, Chair.
No?
No?
Okay. I'll keep going, Chair. So if you could then turn to page 19, top page 19, looking at section 4.15. I've introduced a paragraph that relates to the job evaluation exercise that we've almost concluded as a service into 4.15. The key points there are the effective date of implementation of job evaluation, which was 1 August 2021, and the decision that Fire Authority made back last July around the sort of pay construct, if you like, which is the lowest spinal point for the service being spinal point 5 for corporate staff. So that is an additional section. Over the page, top of page 20, just to flag 7.3, again, reference to spinal point 5. That's just an update to reflect that previous edition. And then moving slowly on to page 22, again, reference to the lowest pay point. So from August 2021, in 9.1, the lowest pay point is an annual salary of 19,312. And continuing the theme on pay, living wage, 9.3 then captures the Fire Authority's decision at the end of last year to become an accredited real living wage employer. So as well as the authority's statutory requirement to pay the national living wage.
Does any member have any queries on those items? No? Okay, we move on, Alison.
Yeah, just some clarity on page 24 and 12.1. Just some references around higher graded jobs and acting up. 12.1 clarifies that acting up generally applies to grey book colleagues. So just a bit of clarity around which group of staff acting up applies to. And then on to page 31, top of page 31, section 19.3. The reference there was not on-call duty system, it was RDS. We now call our RDS model on-call duty system. So I picked that up in the review. So that's just a minor change. The only other substantive area that may need some change in, which I've flagged in the covering report, is in relation to honorarium payments. The section around honorarium payments I've left as it is currently, and this is in relation to corporate staff. But what I did want to flag was that section will be due for review once we've fully completed our job evaluation exercise, and we may want to have another look at that section. That's section 13, because in our job evaluation exercise, we have been reviewing the approach that we've taken to honorariums, and decisions around honorariums have been reviewed as part of job evaluation. So we're looking to review the honorarium payment policy, which we haven't yet completed, but that section will change pending that review. So just to flag that as I've got the floor. And I think that sort of concludes the substantive changes for this year. If members are in agreement to those changes, then we will of course present this final pay policy statement to final authority at its next meeting. And I'll stop there.
Councillor Roberts, I can see your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just that I'd like to approve this pay policy statement, subject to any questions, of course, from other members.
Yeah. Does anybody want to second that? These recommendations? Yeah. Is that all agreed?
No, before we go any further, can I ask a question?
Right.
On page 20, subject to item 7 later on, regarding that particular topic, this is still actually put on the old regime before those changes, if and could be put in place regarding the senior salaries. So how would we move forward if we can authorise this when we haven't agreed on item 7?
Shall I answer that one, Chair? So just for clarity, the section 4.1, which is on page 15, the principal officer pay construct, that's additional text in there is lifted directly from the Goldbook terms and conditions. That those terms and conditions have been in place since, as the front reference states, 2006. So the reference to the annual pay review and the other aspects in those paragraphs have been in place since that time. So there's nothing new there. What I'm trying to do is produce some clarity around our role and responsibility as regards pay policy and pay construct and pay reviews sits.
Can I come back in, Chair? Yeah, yes. But the point I'm trying to raise, if we agree to item 7, this is next year's, that will then change. These figures will be incorrect.
Yes. Sorry, Steve. I see what you're saying now. So the actual salary detail, you're correct, would need to be updated. Yes. Sorry, I thought you were talking about the policy direction. Apologies.
Yeah, no, it's just that mindful on whatever decision is made on item 7, you know, it could either be correct or inaccurate depending on the decision made. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yes, that's correct. And in fact, pay policy statements each year does become out of date at a point because generally pay awards are backdated. So you're right, we want to update that.
Councillor Shaw would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I understood this to be a discussion.
Can I interrupt you? If somebody's talking in the background, can they switch their microphone off if they're not speaking, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I understood this section to be a discussion on policy and agree with the policy. I took the figures in that policy only to be an example. Is that the correct way to approach this?
Yes. We would want to make sure the figures in the salary sections are as accurate as we can. I would probably suggest that, depending on the outcome of the next item, we would, if we can, review them so that they're as accurate as they can be when we go to print.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Is everybody agreeable to that? And we go with the recommendations, which is that members review the South Wales Fire and Rescue Authority's pay policy statement for 22-23, and that members approve the 22-23 pay policy statement to be published by the 31st of March. I think we did have a mover and a seconder before on that. Is that still the same? Okay. All agreed?
Yeah.
So,
No,
a roll call on that very briefly, Chair.
Okay.
So Councillor Ali?
Yes, in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Colbrand?
Yes, I'm in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Drake?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Evans?
In favour as presented, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Hussey?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvie?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Molson?
Agree.
Thank you. Councillor Norton?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw?
In favour.
Thank you. And Councillor Thomas?
In favour.
Thank you. So that was carried in unanimously, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right then, I believe our officers will be leaving shortly.
Yes.
Yes.
Then we get on with item number 7.
Yes.
Is everybody gone?
Yes. Yes.
Right. Now, are we calling in? It's Martin Fry, is it? We calling him now to give this?
Yes. Good morning, Chair. It's Mark.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yes. Sorry, it's Mark Fry. So.
Mark Fry. Sorry.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm here to speak to the review of pay for your principal officers and speak to the report that I've rendered to the Fire Authority. I have a number of slides which I'd like to share with you, if I may.
Yes.
And to give, really, it's a synopsis of the work that we've done. And certainly when it's not too many slides, but when I'm done, I'll be more than happy to take questions, or if indeed anyone wants to ask those questions as I wander through, that's absolutely fine. So let's see if I can get the technology working and share.
Would you prefer us to wait to the end to ask the questions, or do you want to do it as you go along? Which is easiest for you?
It really doesn't matter. If someone really feels the need to ask as I'm wandering through, that's fine. I mean, for preference, there is an opportunity at the end of the presentation to ask those questions.
Okay.
And there aren't too many slides, so they shouldn't have to wait too long until we get to that point, Chair, if that suits.
Chair, if I could. Chair?
Yeah, I couldn't see your hand, unfortunately.
Yeah. If I could, Chair, I mean, I'm a bit concerned about this, and I still feel that this report should go to all members of this authority. At the moment, we're having this presentation limited to just members of this committee, and I think it should go to the entire Fire Authority meeting. You know, so I'm not happy. Why should we just be part of this? Other members would have an interest in this as well. And I think that you shouldn't be making a recommendation to the Fire and Rescue Authority. It should be the Fire and Rescue Authority making this decision. And of course, we've got to consider the finances, and therefore the Treasurer's Department should have an input. You know, Finance Committee should have had an input. And I still feel that, as I said, the whole thing should go to the Fire and Rescue Authority, and all members should have an input. Thank you.
Councillor Shaw, you wanted to say something?
I did actually, if I can, Chair. Thank you very much. I'm in absolute agreement with Councillor Roberts. I believe just one committee is too small a review for such a. I've got 5 other questions actually relating to this report, but the principle, I absolutely agree with Councillor Roberts' assertion. Thank you.
Councillor Norton?
Worth putting a motion that after obviously we discussed today, then we will recommend it to go to fulfil Fire Authority meeting before the end of this term then, rather than us obviously making a recommendation we're in favour or against. we can obviously ask questions and get more information. But is it worth doing a recommendation then for it to go to the Full Fire Authority, as Councillor Roberts and Councillor Shaw have suggested?
So do members wish to go ahead with the presentation and then take the decision afterwards?
Chair, can I speak now? What I'm asking, on the other, the other members' recommendation, because I got quite a few questions to ask, do we look to defer it so it goes forward to the whole of the Fire Authority rather than just selected members on this committee?
That is
Yes.
entirely to our committee.
I would agree that all of it goes to the Fire Authority and every member should partake in the decisions.
I'm sorry about this, Mr. Fry, but you can see that there's difficulties with some of the members here.
Yes, no, I hear. Absolutely. My understanding, Chair, was that there was a meeting scheduled in February for the entire Fire Authority.
Yes, there is.
I believe it's the 14th of February, and I personally won't be available on that date. But if that's the feeling here, is that this is premature, it's not the right forum in which to talk to this particular committee about it's a very important issue. Of course, it potentially involves finance and costs. I accept that entirely. The decision is yours. I'm in your hands in that regard.
Yes, we worry about obviously financial costs, which is very tight at the moment, and also the widening pay gap as well. Which is of course. So I agree with everybody. I think it is far too big for this committee to make a decision on. I know it says under, I think it's 4.3 in the report, that it was decided that it would come to this committee for a decision, but I still think it's too wide for this committee to make that decision on this.
Madam Chair, can I please?
Who wants to speak? I can't see.
Glenn Holmes.
Right. Okay. Glenn.
Right. Yeah, I've got to agree, Madam Chair, with what Steve, Rod and everyone have had to say on this. But one question which is bugging me, and I wonder if I'm losing my marbles on this one. When it comes to, on page 54, looking at the size and the population of the fire authorities in the United Kingdom, South Wales is 9th. We all know we can't compete with London, it's obvious. But yet, when we look at the Chief Officer's pay, the Chief Officer for South Wales is 21st. One huge gap. And when you look at Cleveland, which is bottom of the list for population, and yet for pay, they're 6th. Can someone tell me how this anomaly arises? If it is an anomaly?
Would you like me to venture a view on that?
If you don't mind answering that question, obviously Councillor Holmes can raise it if we
Yes.
do decide to defer it to the authority.
It's a perfectly good point that the councillor raises, and that's what we found when we gathered the data. But one of the issues I think that's contributed to South Wales Fire and Rescue Service falling behind the curve, at least the pay curve as we see it, is that perhaps it hasn't had a formal review since 2004. And when you have such a large gap between, the carrying out of a particular review like this, it's not really that surprising that there's been that dislocation between current pay levels and what's more common across the comparator market. So at one level, it does look at, we certainly feel that pay is out of kilter based on the data captured from 25 fire and rescue services, which is about half the entire fire and rescue service population across the United Kingdom. So it's a good data capture. And you are, as an authority, paying if you then take into account what we call the work demand issues, like the size of how many full-time people the chief fire officer's managing, the size of the population served, the scale of the revenue budget. When we look at those and then aggregate those factors together, we come up with, it would be more reasonable, we think, to or appropriate to have the fire and rescue service ranked 7th when you look at those factors, and not 21st in the pay league as you currently are. Now, we were never intended in this report or this piece of work to come to you with some exorbitant demand that you must pay the going rate, because arguably, what is the going rate? All we can do is look at data, sensibly do something sensible with that capture of data, which we think is actually sufficiently broad and relevant to make an informed comment. And that informed comment, from our experience, is that yes, you are a low-paying fire and rescue service. And what does that mean? What are the risks here for the authority? And the risks clearly are that if you have, or should things happen and there are vacancies, will you attract people of the right calibre into that role when they might be sitting somewhere else thinking, I'll be taking a pay cut to go there? There are always the risks with these things. I mean, there's no imperative for any organisation, be it a fire and rescue service or any other across UK PLC. Certainly from our position, we don't come along and say, you really must pay X, Y or Z. All we can do is point out where the data takes us. If there are, if we find that pay is what we call behind the curve, in other words, typical comparators are paying more, then there is a risk. We have to identify that risk, and the risk typically is that you won't be attracting appropriate talent into vacancies you might have, and indeed it's possible you might even lose people who see a comparable job in another. I mean, certainly senior players often are more mobile. They might think, well, I'll pack up my bags, I'm getting 20, 30,000 more up the road for doing a similar job, and I'm at the time of my life where I might just decide to do that. So these are risks, and it's really for the fire authority, whether expressed through a particular committee or the entire authority, in our view, it's at least, if we could ask you to understand those risks and then come to a view as to how you want to play it. And I'm fully aware on the other side of the coin that I can't spend your money. I don't have any authority in spending the fire authority's budget. I can only say there might be more than one way you could approach that to address the issue, albeit over time rather than in one big hit, because it is expensive to correct or to go to a more appropriate level of pay. It's expensive.
Yeah.
And I don't try and disguise that for you. So my thinking around that is, well, it could be perhaps addressed over 2 or more years in order to move in the right direction, a step at a time, if it's too much to swallow in one big hit. So that's the sort of thing that can also be done here. And
is that okay for you, Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, I can see a hand. Sorry.
Councillor Roberts wants to ask a question.
Yeah, please do. Sorry, I'm rabbiting on.
Well, no, I don't want to ask a question, Chair.
Oh, right.
What I'm going to say is that I think this has such high implications for this authority. And don't get me wrong, I am not against giving the rises that have been asked for. Don't get me wrong. I just think because this is going to have an impact on all local authorities, all the members of the fire authority, it'll impact on them authorities as well. And I feel that every member should therefore have an...
Oh, you've frozen, Councillor Roberts? I've lost you. Councillor Norton, do you want to come in while Councillor Roberts tries to reconnect herself?
Yeah, so I was going to say, obviously, it might be worth asking a few more questions from other members. My questions were kind of answered, Chair, by Mark, so thank you for that.
Right.
I do appreciate, obviously, for senior leadership do, a very hard job, and, we can debate the value of some other authorities, potentially like Cleveland, might be overpaying staff compared if you look from populations. But, we are behind the curve compared to other fire authorities, including actually ones in Wales and nearby ones in England as well. So I think it is an issue potentially around recruitment. I think in your report as well, you did say we missed out on one potential employee due to around costs. So I think that they could get paid more in another authority. So I think that's potentially already an issue we have. So it might be good to have maybe make an initial recommendation. I think it still needs to go to the Phil Fire Authority for approval, but maybe if we can start having plans drawn up for a 2 to 3 year pay increase, so not done in 1 year, but over 2 to 3 year timescale, or maybe have a couple options for authority to look into when it comes to a meeting to see the costs and decide it. So I think anywhere from a 2 to 3 year period could, be more manageable and still be obviously able to keep the talent in South Wales.
Yeah. Oh, Councillor Roberts, you're back. We lost you.
Yeah, sorry.
No, Councillor Norton spoke in the meantime. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry about that, Chair. I mean, this is important. It is going to have implications on all local authorities, whether we like it or not. And yes, I can see the sense in having it spread over 2 to 3 years. But can we really make that decision between just how many of us is there? 9?
No.
I mean, really, it should go to the full board so that every local authority is having an input. And if the board says, well, yes, we go ahead, so be it. But at least everybody would have had an input into it. We are all members of the Fire Authority. Give us all a chance and an opportunity to have our say.
Councillor Evans, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, and I agree with what Robert said. It's a very difficult decision. We need to consult with our authorities. I know it's been 2006 before it's been looked at, but there's hell of a gap between 2006 and 2022 now to authorise that sort of money without going and consulting with others, because if it's just left to the limited few on this committee, I don't think it's fair and appropriate that we should be doing that.
Yeah. Right then, nobody else wants to raise anything further. Well, the motion is on the table. Oh, sorry, who wants to speak? I can't see.
It's me with my arm up. Councillor Shaw.
Oh, right. No, you didn't come up on my screen, unfortunately.
All right, okay.
Chair.
Just a brief comment before we move on. Yeah, I still hold absolute support for Councillor Roberts' motion that this is deferred for full council. Since then, we seem to have gone into some of the minutiae, which, frankly, there's things I would contest. But I've held back on my 5 questions because I think the appropriate time is in a decision-making body, and if we've just taken the decision not to make a decision, that isn't now. Yeah.
Because I don't know whether we've got every member from every local authority on this committee. I don't know. And as Councillor Roberts said, it's got impact on local authorities, and they should be, how tight things are at the moment, and it's going to get worse, isn't it? So the financial implications we've got to look up very carefully. Councillor Ali, did you want to say something?
Chair, I just to add it on with everyone, I feel, it will be better if we take this into the full committee, and then we could decide on that. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, right. Okay then. Well, if nobody else wants to say anything, This motion is that it be deferred to the Fire and Rescue Authority full meeting, and I think I'll take a vote on that. Right. Myself, Councillor Drake, 4. Councillor Roberts? 4. Right. Councillor Ali?
4.
Councillor Colburn?
Yes, 4.
Councillor Evans?
Yeah, 4.
Councillor Holmes?
4.
Councillor Hezzy?
4.
Councillor Dravi?
4.
Councillor Melson? 4. Councillor Norton?
4.
Councillor Shaw?
4.
And Councillor Thomas?
4.
I presume that the 3 other people that are on here haven't joined us, which is Councillor Lister, Councillor Hodgkins and Councillor Ellsbury. Well, Councillor Ellsbury did give his apologies anyway. Okay? Right then. Well, thank you very much for your attendance, and I'm sorry you've had to go through all this. So, but thank you for coming forward, Mr. Fry, and giving us this report. And we hope to see you again.
Yes, so thanks for your time, and I wish you well, and let's hope it goes to the appropriate authority as it's scheduled to do next month.
Yeah, yeah. You can understand our concerns, obviously.
Oh, no, absolutely. I've not disagreed with anything I've heard here this morning. I would have been interested to hear some of the questions, but there we are. That can be held over to another day. Yeah.
I'm sure they'll be fired at you again.
Excellent. Have a good day. Thanks for your time. Goodbye now.
Bye-bye.
May I go fetch the officers?
Yeah, do you want to invite them back in? Thank you, everybody. I think that was obviously the right decision. It's a difficult one, isn't it?
It is difficult to be standalone to make that enormous decision without the full backing of everyone.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I was just going through the list. Councillor Hodgkins is not here, and he's only the only representative from Blaenau Gwent. Yeah. So we need everybody on board, don't we?
Yeah. Like I say, it's the implications, not just within the authority, it's to our own authorities. You know?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
That's very good. Yes.
Right, Chair, we're back in the room again now.
Right, well, we made our decision and the motion was put on the table. This be deferred to the local authority, the fire authority meeting, and we took a vote on it and it was unanimous from all members present.
Yeah. Super.
Okay, do we move on now?
Yes.
Right, item number 8, which is the Fire and Rescue Service People's Plan, Annual Review and Progress Against Themes. So who's going to take this?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Chair.
Yep.
So, okay, I'm just going to find my report. Okay, so I wanted to bring this back to HR and Equalities because you'll remember that you reviewed and signed off the first draft of the People Plan. The plan itself has now been in existence for 12 months, and so I thought it was appropriate to bring the plan back to you as a committee so that you can have a look at the progress made against it. What I've tried to do is pull together progress against the high-level themes. So in Appendix 1 to the report itself, you've got the People Plan, and then Appendix 2 starts to draw the deliverables against each of the high-level themes. There are 5 themes in the report. I hope you've all had an opportunity to review the progress, and I think probably my reflection is, even against a backdrop of another year of COVID in the last 12 months, we have still continued and maintained our sort of service delivery against each of the areas that are important to us as a service. Some examples of which include, moving to a more digital offer in our HR sort of day-to-day activity. For example, our recruitment campaigns are now fully digital. Our personal reviews were launched, so this is our appraisal process. That was launched back last April, and we're now almost a year into those, and we'll undertake a review of how that process is embedded. We achieved Investors in People gold status for our People Award and silver status for our Wellbeing Award. So that was an improvement on our People Award, and the Wellbeing Award was a new award for us. So we did well in terms of that silver status. We started our job evaluation exercise, and that's almost now complete. We've maintained our learning and development offer for our senior and middle leaders. So senior middle leaders events focused on engagement, change and innovation. Middle leaders are also have continued throughout the last year. We've launched also the NFCC Leadership Framework as part of our personal reviews. So this is a document that sets out the behaviours that the National Fire Chiefs Council recommend are adopted across all fire and rescue services in the UK. We've introduced a wellbeing delivery group to support our mental health strategy and our wellbeing more generally. And some of the activity arising out of that includes our case reviews, where we support our people when they've been absent in facilitating their return back to the workplace. And finally, just to look ahead, we are planning now to launch our learning management system, which will support our learning offer for the whole of the service. And we're in the process currently of finalising the detail there so that it gets launched, hopefully from April of this year. So some capture of sort of past performance and some things that are coming down the pipeline. So I'll stop there and take any questions.
Councillor Evans put his hand up first, and then Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, what data are we collecting? What are we using to analyse that? And what are we doing with it to project us to the higher bands of the scheme from silver onwards? Or perhaps on a People's Plan one as well?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Evans. So the sorts of data that we collect, so the Investors in People framework has a number of facets to it. So it looks at leadership and management, wellbeing, and so on. And so what we're doing throughout the year is we are checking some of the activity that we're undertaking, and we're mapping it across to the framework. So that so what we did differently to achieve gold standard this year was just simply looking at our deliverables against the detail in the framework, and actually presenting the assessor with that evidence on a proactive basis. So using also the analysts that sit in Sarah's team, who have done some brilliant work in terms of that mapping exercise for us. One of the things that the Investors in People assessor has said to us is she does need to see evidence of progress on a consistent level. So over a number of years, the metrics on an average of sort of 3 years, she would want to see evidence of improvement over that time period. So a really good question and very apt, because we are now tracking lots of metrics. So if it's absence levels, recruitment, anything people related, our development programs, then we're mapping it and we're capturing it. Does that answer your question, Councillor Evans?
Yeah, no, that's a fine thing. I knew you would, but I knew you would be able to describe it so everybody else would know. But the other part of that I would ask, what are we looking at to attain? Is it achievable? And is it that, advisable we go to the next level? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Yes, and I think the next level is achievable for us. I think that mapping of the metrics and capturing those metrics will be key for us. So having that 3-year look at how as a service we've improved against the framework, and that's the activity that's ongoing. So yes, I believe we can achieve the next level.
Is that okay? Councillor Roberts, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wanted to know, the role of Family Support Officer was created. That must have been a difficult post over the last 2 years. Could you, tell us how that has operated?
Yes, so thank you, Councillor Roberts. We introduced the role of Family Support Officer following the tragic passing of a colleague. And it's a model that is out there. I think other emergency services use a similar model. And the role is to support families at that time of need, and also to support colleagues. So we brought in the charity that you may have heard about previously, which is To Wish Upon a Star. They have trained up to 20 officers now to become the Family Support Officer. That the role is, in my words, absolutely incredible in terms of the support that it provides. And it's from, offering information, advice, being there at the time of need. So when the family needs that support, and I've observed it on a couple of occasions now, and I think the role is key for us as a service. So really important role, and I expect the families that were involved would probably say that the support has been, really timely and well needed and helpful.
Thank you. One other question I'd like to ask, Chair, but I wouldn't want an answer now, and that is just that if we could have an update on this e-recruitment at the next meeting of the authority.
Yes, absolutely. I can arrange that, no problem.
Right. Councillor Colburn?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Not so much a question as a comment. I was really pleased to hear that you're working with To Wish Upon a Star. I'm the Mayor of Merthyr Tydfil, and To Wish Upon a Star, one of my mayor's charities. I'm not sure if all members here are familiar with what they do, but they support families who have lost a child in traumatic circumstances, and they also support emergency services as well, because obviously it's very traumatic for them to have to deal with the aftermath of some of these incidents. So I'm really pleased to hear that you're working with them. They're a fantastic charity, and I recommend them to anybody else who's not aware of them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Norton, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question actually goes on the online recruitment as well, but on the different side of it. We obviously all know with online recruitment is important, but not everyone has access to online, and particularly when you have restrictions with COVID coming and going, it could obviously cause issues where people don't have their own private computer or laptop. So I'm just wondering, is there any reserve measures put in place to help people who don't have access online still apply? Because otherwise you're cutting out a section of the population from even the chance of working for the authority.
Yes, absolutely, Councillor Norton. It's not an online only offer. So people who want to apply via a paper application still have that option to do so. So yes, very mindful of the points you raised there, and so it was our position that we would not just move to only online services.
Yeah, well, that's good, because that can be quite discriminatory for some people, can't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody else want to Councillor Malson?
Hi. Back last year, we were talking, especially during lockdown, with the mental health well-being of our firemen and women. And I can see here that it ensures that physical and mental well-being of our people is at the heart of any related strategies and procedures. At the time, we were discussing how many stations had a well-being room, had a gym. And I also answered the question at the time with those that were suffering with mental health, how was the fire service addressing this? And with discussions, you were keeping telephone conversations going with fire service men and women. And I did ask at the time, did you have a mental health consultant there?
Yeah, Councillor Malson, thank you. So we have, over the last couple of years, seconded an operational colleague, so a firefighter, into our attendance management team to support the work around mental health. So we've put some resource into creating our mental health strategy, and some of the outcomes of that work has been around creating wellbeing spaces in our fire stations. It's been around tagging traumatic incidents that some of our firefighters may have attended, so that they can, so that we can monitor and build that tracking into our health surveillance, so that we're offering a sort of proactive screening process to them. So yeah, we in terms of gyms on stations, I'm looking at colleagues. I'm pretty confident there's probably a gym on every station. But yeah, we can certainly do, perhaps at a future meeting, bring all of this together and present an update on our mental health strategy, specifically answering some of those questions that you've put to us there, Councillor Malson. But yeah, gyms on stations, very much a focus around our sort of occupational health support that we provide, because we have an occupational health function. Sort of any other sort of consultancy support that our people need, we provide it. So yeah, it's procuring that sort of extra support and having that focus by using an operational colleague just to bring some of the, you know, the day-to-day activity that colleagues are facing and are exposed to, has helped to shape that offer. Our wellbeing delivery group has been very proactive in terms of wellbeing spaces, and our health steering group has been given that sort of high level look and discussion around the services that we offer. So yeah, a lot of work done. Also, the firefighter that was involved in our recruitment is now part of the a Royal Foundation steering group. So you know, we're learning best practice also from those discussions and the sort of the report that's come out of that steering group also. So yeah, very much focused and an ongoing sort of look at best practice in that area for us.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Right, does anybody else want to ask Alison anything on this item? No? Well, the recommendations are that the members note the All Wales People and Organisation Development Strategy. 2, that the members note the South Wales Fire and Rescue Service People's Plan attached in report at Appendix 1. Sorry about that. That members note progress against the South Wales Fire and Rescue Plan attached at the report at Appendix 2. Do I have a mover?
Move.
And a seconder?
Second.
Are we all agreed? Yes, good. Thank you very much. Right, we'll move now on to item number 9, which is the establishment structure update, which I believe Andrew Jones is going to be presenting.
Thank you, Chair, and all members. You'll be pleased to notice a very quick report for your information. For the longer standing members, you may recall back in September 2018, we underwent a significant review of the staffing structure within the service. And I think one of the criteria that came out of that was members allowed the service to undertakes a review of departmental team structures, etc. But there was an obligation for us to report it to yourselves on an annual basis. So that's the purpose of today's meeting. Since September 2018, there's only been one previous restructure, and that was in Alison and my department, HR department. That came in pretty much cost neutral, and that's the only change which indicates to some extent that we got the structure pretty much right back in September 18. There have been no further changes, as I said, in 2021 and 21-22 certainly. But you may recall back in December at Fire Authority that Chris Barton, the Services Treasurer, took a paper on the revenue budget for 22-23 and took the opportunity to highlight the fact that we have a number of current posts which are of a temporary nature, but are necessary on a permanent basis. The funding for these posts were going to be found from within the current overall employee budget. And the posts there I've indicated in bold. So I think this paper, you will recall from the December Fire Authority meeting, is that we're looking at making those posts permanent. There is good reason for all of those posts, and they've been temporary for some time. So a desire now to make those permanent on an ongoing basis, and that's the only change to the structure, if you like, that we anticipate in 22-23. So we'll be looking to point to those positions at the earliest opportunity.
Right. Councillor Roberts?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is something that we've already agreed, so I'd like to move that we note the report subject to any more questions.
Yes, yeah. Anybody else got any questions to ask? No? Right, we'll take that Councillor Roberts has moved the report. Is anybody else going to second it?
I'll second it, yeah.
Are we all agreed? Yes, fine. Thank you very much, everybody. Now, the next item is item number 10, which is the Forward Work Programme, which I believe is self-explanatory as stands. Nobody got anything to raise on there? No?
No, just move, we note, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I ask before we finish up with the meeting?
Yeah.
With the recording today, have we recorded item 7 on this format?
Yes,
Should that be confidential or not go anywhere else?
No, item 7 is an item that is available to the public. It's in the public domain. The decision was made to make sure that it was an open and transparent process. So the meeting, as I mentioned prior to us starting, has been recorded in its entirety and will be published as such on the website.
No, thanks for that. Just to clarify it, that was all.
Right, yeah. Okay. Right, item number 11. I have got no urgent business, but I would like to thank everybody for their very important input today. Oh, I think we have achieved something which was very, very difficult, and I look forward to seeing you all at the Fire Authority meeting on the 15th of February? Is that right? Day after Valentine's Day?
Yeah. No, you'll be kissed out.
Oh, thank you very much, everybody, for their attendance, and thank you, officers, putting up with us today.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Chair.